My name is Marishka, and I'm a non-binary South Asian Canadian game developer based in Toronto, Canada. And the game I'm currently working on at Stugan is titled Soothsayer, which is an interactive room-scale VR game. The idea of the game stemmed off of two ideas I worked on with the help of actually a Toronto non-for-profit games curator who helped fund those initial two projects. So one was a game, a 2D, like a regular traditional 2D game about being trapped in a house party and also feeling a lot of anxiety and being like the elephant in the room and feeling that you can't escape based on a drug trip you're on. And then the other idea is a VR game that I was working on, which was about entering people's bodies, but as a spirit surgeon, quote unquote. And those ideas kind of both converged into what is now Soothsayer, which was both the sense of being trapped in a room and feeling that anxiety or the similarities of what you might feel if you're feeling alone in a space where you're with unfamiliar people, as well as kind of in the psychonaut type way of entering people's bodies and minds and then figuring out what they're coming from, as well as exploring different aspects of mental health that way. So I come from a very visual background initially, even though I did a very multidisciplinary program. And a lot of that is exploring what I would either see in dreams or in sort of other visual mediums. Definitely movies play a big part of it, especially ones where they are very experimental, and I don't want to keep referring to constant drug trips, but I find it more interesting and more immersive in a VR standpoint. And one of the mechanics which a lot of people enjoy is actually the manipulation of size in VR, because it's a very visceral feeling. So one of the first things that happen in my game is you take a bunch of pills, and from there, when you eat it or consume it, you automatically shrink to an ant size, and then the whole world kind of changes around you. And it's amazing seeing people's reactions to that initial simplicity of mechanic, but just that feeling that it just conveys overall. And that's what I kind of want to bring into this game. Just minimal sort of mechanics, but something that makes the player feel larger than life. Visual references, I guess, are interesting. I picture any sort of colorful type of experiences. A lot was inspired by the first game I worked on, which was titled Dispirited, and that one I just loved because it was it was actually a lot of, in terms of the visual effects, very unlit, so nothing, it was just a bright color that you would see. But it also gave a very psychedelic type of feeling to the player. So I really like those kind of very colorful or Wes Anderson type of visuals where it's very bright. And another example, I guess, is another show called Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. They use colors a lot there. And in terms of the gameplay, I was inspired by, besides previously mentioning Psychonauts, another one was Edith Finch, because a lot of the mechanics and the storytelling and how they kind of converge was something that I was really inspired by and wanted to tell a story with. I like the idea of having a lot of visuals or how a player interacts with things tell a story. So one of the elements I'm working on is you enter this person's mind as one of the levels, and then you kind of go through an experience where, as you're sort of climbing through achievements that this person's going through, one of the cutscenes that you kind of interact with is actually your partner that you meet, and they give you a box and then you see a key in it, and it's actually like the first apartment that you're going through, and then in that sense, when you pick up the key, you actually open the door into the next level or like the next part of the game. So I kind of want to use these different elements as well as these different interactions to also just tell a story without too much text or like someone just immediately telling you what's going on, but it's something that the player also feels very involved with, which I thought Edith Finch did very well in terms of having the player interact with different parts of the environment in order to really convey how the character that they're kind of embodying is feeling. So I came into Stugan not in the initial beginning of when it started, and it's honestly been the greatest experience I've had, especially in terms of working on something, but also taking the time to realize that it's also good to do activities on top of doing work and being productive. And one of the greatest things I've experienced is really collaborating with people, which I don't do enough of in my day-to-day basis of developing. And especially working with people from different cultures and what they bring, as well as their different backgrounds, have really helped me shape the game into what it is right now. By the end of Stugan, I'll definitely have a vertical slice demo where you go through sort of an introductory experience, as well as one of the first levels, or one of the first people whose mind you enter. And from there, after the current Stugan showcase, I'm planning to put that into a festival after a couple iterations on some things, but I definitely want to continue working on it. And even though it's been known to be like a year of development every time you make an end goal, I'm planning to fully have at least an alpha build within just under a year or so. And my eventual goal is to have it published on the Vive or Steam as well as Oculus. And then hopefully, if Sony likes it, the PSVR as well, because it's great to, at least in VR, have it in as many platforms as you can. If you want to follow more of my work on Twitter, you can follow me at CladandRad. I'll also eventually put up an itch.io page, which is soothsayervr.itch.io. And lastly, remember kids, if avocados die in VR, they die in real life. Catch you later.